you can look at that, and it's basically a filter site. I think I've shown this before. It's a proof of concept for a client, and it's meant to allow the client to see that even though we have 7,000 records in the database, that only 50 or 40 of them are fetched at a time. So we're not going to have any delay when it comes to the work. So what you see there, hopefully, I'll share my screen because I got a lot of things. The sales data site is set up that, again, you can click on anything and see it's fetching items from the database. To answer Brad's question, the data is actually stored in Supabase as a cache because this is a public site, and potentially hundreds of thousands of people could be fetching at the same time and editing at the same time for that matter. And then FileMaker would just go berserk if it had to deal with all that. So I've got that, but then I also have a database that's an issue. I have a FileMaker database where this data is actually stored. It's on my server. Admin. And what I was working on this week is doing something where you, as the user, could come into it and make a change to the product. So it went from, and then that would update. It doesn't update here yet in real time, but it's actually updating on the site or in here in real time. And although I don't have it fully set up to update this, I am pulling in those updates here in real time using a webhook. So here's the change that I made from 166 to 170 for this product with this primary key. And so now I can go and update this. Again, this doesn't update perfectly here yet. I got to figure that out. But it's updated down here now. And then it's in here. And then I can eventually write this information to the actual record.
Did you set the webhook up with automatic?
I did, yeah, with auto FMS, automatic, whichever one, yeah. So, yeah, it's all different weird versions right now, but that's the idea, is to, and you go ahead and click on something and view it, and then update it. It's fun to get this to work, and then watch. So I've got this program to, whenever I insert something, when I insert into this Supabase table, it will send back to FileMaker. And when I update, people on the website won't be able to delete, so I didn't have to worry about that. But this is just a way to make sure that the record, there's somebody made a change here. Just to make sure that I'm getting all of the changes made by users that are necessary. So,
question: what's sending the webhook? Is it your code? Is it Supabase?
It's Supabase, yeah. So they've got, I don't even know where it is. I think it's in the database version. Yeah, webhook. Yep, update record. So that's sending it to there, and it's just going great. So, cool. Yeah, I'm talking about this with other people, but this is an interesting idea. Webhooks were built to do this, right? They were built for this purpose, right? To be able to make a change somewhere else when a change in the source happened, right? Or to send a trigger to somewhere else, right? So webhooks are a legitimate way to do business. And I think this is better than trying to make the change directly in FileMaker. The changes being made inside of the Supabase table, all of your changes are being stored in here. And then that eventually sends it to FileMaker where the source of truth is, and it will eventually be updated. So I think that's the right way to go in a particular scenario.
How do you get the data into Supabase in the first place? Are you gonna have like an issue where it goes around and around and around?
Yeah, so I've got I've got a couple processes built up. So ad sales data will just go find all the records and then send them to a subscript that uses the HTTP request script to send it over. And then I can update the record from, I think I'm updating it from FileMaker. Let's see, is this a post or yeah, this is a patch. So I can take this, make a change, and then push it there. Or I can update the cache. This is a little bit confusing, but this button over here is supposed to fetch the change from Supabase. This button over here pushes the change to Supabase, one record at a time. So
What's the advantage of doing it that way over using, like, say, PHP?
because I don't know PHP.
Oh, okay. That's legitimate.
That's legitimate, yeah. Is this something you can do with PHP that doesn't require what does it remove the webhook need or the database cache need or what?
Yeah, having an intermediary with PHP, you can communicate directly from the PHP web presentation public page back to FileMaker, just like, with the same kind of calls and stuff you would use in JavaScript.
Yep. So okay, so the advantage is I can do that with JavaScript, but the advantage I think is that I am letting Supabase be the hit point versus FileMaker. If a public website were to if a public website like like let's say target.com, all of its products were in a FileMaker database, that would kill the FileMaker database. I mean, it's not designed for that. But so what I'm exploring is the idea of having a cache that's always connected to a FileMaker system that allows there to be a hit point for the public database. And even talking with someone else about this, even not a public database, even one where people have to log in and get credentials and then see their own data from FileMaker, we're going to put all of the data in Supabase in like the same kinds of tables, the same tables as what's in FileMaker, and then let Supabase handle all because it's fast. I mean, if you're clicking around here, it's a fetch every time you press a button. That's pretty dang fast. That's it's faster than what I think FileMaker could allow for even if you're using its data API or a script to do this, whatever. So
if you were allowing, like, let's say, for example, you had an airline as a customer, and you were working with, say, their maintenance department, and they wanted to feed into your system the bill of materials and any maintenance changes or anything like that wouldn't really effectively hit the FileMaker database, but it would just be like a data repository that you could draw upon into, the business logic in the FileMaker application. This would give them a portal to do that, and then you could bring the information in to FileMaker in a batch or
yeah,
however you wanted to do it. Is that?
Yeah, you can certainly do it in a batch if it's not necessary that the change be immediately reflected in the FileMaker table. If there's, I guess, an allowance for time, then yeah, once a day would work.
So this is a Postgres.
It is. Yeah.
I'm wondering, just not knowing enough about Postgres. That's relational, isn't it?
It is. Yep. Or well, Supabases can be relational. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking about scale, size of the database and all that kind of stuff.
Well, I think this could handle more records than FileMaker could.
And FileMaker, yeah.
I have a question for you, Jeremy, whenever you.
Yeah.
So, let's just say on that one, say I go in right now and view product 28, it's got 58. Let's say I jump that up to 62 units sold.
Yep.
So when I change that from 58 to 62, it updates it updates Supabase right now, right?
That's correct.
Okay. How often does the script that sends it to from Supabase to FileMaker run compared to the script that pulls from FileMaker to Supabase run?
Well, your update will cause a hook to trigger to push the data to FileMaker right away. Go ahead and do it, and you'll see this number update from 7,018 to 7,019 in a half a second after you're done.
October, and I'm gonna change product 28. Okay, it's changed.
So 719, there it is, 58 to 60. And then when I refresh, this would be ideal if it refreshed on my end too, but now that's updated down here as well. So
Yeah, I was just wondering because if I made that change, when does it get sent to FileMaker? Because if FileMaker script runs to pull it from FileMaker into Supabase, then something's going to conflict if they happen to run close to each other or at the same time.
You're right.
Reason.
There's some syncing that we need to deal with, but I think it's worth it. So this isn't actually going into the actual table. That data, 2000, what was it? 2013 October.
Yeah, of October, product 28.
That actually hasn't been updated. TOB, or I don't know what's going on. Oh, product ID. That hasn't been updated here yet. I only have it in the caching here that would need to go and change it. So I guess what I would do, I mean, I haven't thought through this yet, but here is what came from Supabase. So I would take this new record, this change, I would go over here, find this record, and if it's being edited at the moment by someone else, then I know I shouldn't update it, I think, if it's been locked. If it's actually, here's the problem. If the old record in Supabase said it was 58, you updated it to 60, but let's say it's 73 here because that's what someone in FileMaker did, then I have to figure out which one is the right value. Right?
Yeah.
I've been exploring the idea of using a hash to see if I can figure that out, but I also know that just the modification timestamp would be something that I need to consider. I need to put a modification timestamp in here. I hope I can do that. I don't even know. Oh yeah, I can. Timestamp. I don't know if this is a modification or if it's I have to look and see. So I have to figure that out. But using a timestamp and then comparing them and seeing which one is the latter, or the FileMaker data is always the correct one, and only if there's no conflict does the Supabase get to update FileMaker. I don't know. Haven't thought through that yet, but yeah.
To be fair,
somebody
Jeremy,
somebody goes on the website and changes it to 60, but FileMaker still says 58, then technically, if they change it from 58 to 60 on the site, then technically FileMaker's not the most recent, isn't the most updated.
That is correct. But I do have a copy of it. I do have
with the webhook, it's nice because you can queue, and like you said, you always can go back to that queuing and the message that's there. But I have a question. So right now, and maybe FileMaker will get better in the future, but right now, when you hit FileMaker with a webhook, you can't actually return some kind of error back out on the payload, can you?
That's correct. As far as that.
So
Webhooks don't.
at some point, hopefully, you will be able to.
Webhooks don't send responses, as far as I understand.
Well, you get something back when you push it out there, right?
Would get HTTP.
You
get what, Dan?
It depends more on the receiving end. Like, it would depend more on Supabase and how they handle the webhooks. So,
okay,
if it's a GET request, then let's see.
Yeah, I would imagine that, if it's a get or a post or however they're sending you the data will be one aspect of it. And it's a matter of, do they even check for an HTTP error? Do they check for the response body? What do they do? What does the person sending the webhook support?
I'm
Generally,
sending,
go ahead.
I'm sending it as a post, but I mean, is that the right way to go? I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if it matters. I would think for this data, post makes sense, but and I was just speaking generally, like in broad terms, working with other webhooks and stuff. Like some webhooks just send it, assuming you receive it, and it's your job to make sure to receive it. And other webhooks actually try to resend it if they get an HTTP error, and it's all up to that one company how to manage it.
Issue with the client that had we had auto set up on a local server, but their internet would get finicky and they would miss stuff. So we moved the symbol queue file and all that to a different server, and then we can push stuff from the queue if it misses it. But I understand what you're saying. Sometimes, yeah, sometimes they'll retry or whatever. But with that, you do get. But is the only error that you can get is like anything other than 200, or can you actually get a message back? Because I thought you could get a message back.
Yeah, but possibly, but there's just no way to, like, I don't see any way to handle it. Like, what is,
Right.
I'll have to read about this. What is it going to do when there's an error, when FileMaker is down? What will it do? I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Because could you pass it back to the user and be like, this record could not be updated?
which
that-
is, oh, you're talking about to the website, actually.
All the way back. Yeah. Could you draw it all the way back? So like what he's saying, if the record was locked or whatever, could you actually tell the user, hey, we weren't able to update this record. You have to try again.
Right. Okay. I don't know. That's good to
FileMaker's
for
there,
it. Ben, you had some thoughts?
That sounds
kind of. I mean, everyone's
Oh.
saying interesting stuff. I mean, it was just more that that these kind of questions of like syncing and priority, they're with any syncing system. That's a business use case. Do you give you give people higher permissions, depending on who entered it, or you do the latest is always correct or whatever. Do you know what I mean? I don't think it's always something you have to solve when you're syncing. Think about that. Yeah.
Dan?
And yeah, the same I would do it is like you kind of want to know if this has been updated in FileMaker or not, to whether you display it back in Supabase or you tell the user or queue it up, or tell the user it didn't work. Yeah. That's it.
Dan, did you have some thoughts?
just it gets pretty complicated if you want to actually try to stop the web user to do that. You kind of have to use. I think you have to use a different like base concept. Like the way you're doing it, it's good for performance, but it's kind of becomes this asynchronous thing that now you can't communicate directly between your website and FileMaker. Therefore, you can't ever stop that person unless FileMaker updates Supabase and your website updates check Supabase, and then you can invalidate that request at that time.
Yeah.
That's about all I can think to do. And actually, that's probably a good point. What I've noticed working with Betterform stuff is the time I potentially had the most issues is if somebody loaded a record and then walked away and left it open for, let's just say, hours or overnight, and then come back the next day and change something and submit it. So the time between when they clicked on the product to when they changed it and submitted it was a lot longer than you would typically think would happen.
Yeah.
And those are the times that I experienced the most issues with.
Yeah. So I we'll wrap this up here because it's what are we at? We're at now. I don't know what we're at. I got to figure it out. Would you rather trade hitting FileMaker many times, but it always being updated directly versus having some sort of middleware in between that protects FileMaker? What's the best trade-off there? Oh my gosh, we're at 20 minutes here.
I think it depends on the load.
Okay.
Like if you have
I
a
think-
lot of users, then what you've done is great. And if you have a lot of writes and a lot of like read write blocks, you kind of need to talk to FileMaker more, I would think.
Yeah, and I think it depends on the situation, the use case, very much. If it's a different use case if it has to be constantly in sync as opposed to like this will get updated at some point or maybe not, and there are legitimate use cases.
Well, isn't that the whole model of the eventually consistent idea? Like,
Yeah.
you can't expect it to be updated perfectly every time. I don't know. I mean, I'm just dipping my toes in this, and that's why I want to kind of go back to just the widgets because it's a lot easier. You're in FileMaker. You can only have FileMaker data. You're only displaying FileMaker data. It would be so much nicer. So I'm kind of biting off a lot more here, but
Hitting FileMaker constantly, like every minute or even every 5 minutes. If there's a lot of data that needs to be pulled or sent or pulled, then that can be taxing on the server as well.
that's the problem. That's what I'm trying to
Yeah.
avoid. Yeah.
And not only that, I mean, you're talking about data usage too. I mean, after a while, got a lot of people hitting that every single minute.
I think you have the exact right approach. I think people hate waiting for stuff to load. They get so irritated and so I think in webhooks, as much as the whole communication thing is an issue, the webhooks, they are super quick. Like these transactions are happening very fast. So the likelihood that you're gonna have a lot of conflicts, I just don't think is really there. I think you have the right approach. I think it gives it efficient. I think webhooks are light enough and fast enough that it probably won't be a problem.
Okay.
Most of the time, my opinion.
Okay, cool. Well, we'll close the book on this one and we'll move on to someone else, but I want to say hi to Michael. Well, thanks for joining us, Michael. Michael, you reminded me, or your name reminded me that you built, I would love for you to show us today, you built a process inside of the dev environment that will always clear out the parcel cache and the dist folders whenever you do a run. Would you mind, you don't have to do it right now, but would you mind spinning up an example and showing us? Because we were struggling with this last week. Something I was trying to update wasn't going into FileMaker correctly, and I remembered that you had that little function. So would you mind showing us in a few minutes?
I can't do it right now. Hi guys.
Hello.
But actually, I did send you this. I did send it to you. The script that I've written.
Did you?
Yeah. But I'll have a look for it. It's like a couple of months ago. That's like 10 years in the way I work.
I know, but it's always been in my mind because I struggle with caching every once in a while. So
I'll have to find it. It's there, and it did work. So it's all in VS Code.
Okay.
So I'll dig it out. Yeah. Hi.
Thank you, Michael. It did work because I've been using it, and
Oh,
I'm
you
not
have
sure where I've got it either. But as soon as you posted it, so you definitely posted it, so definitely using it. It's really
okay,
helpful.
I'll find
Thank
it.
you.
I'll find it in the community and we'll add it to the dev environment today.
Okay, right. You saved me having to dig out.
You haven't been here for a while, and then you show up, and I'm like, "Get to work! Show us something right now."
There's lots going on here. I'm moving around a lot, traveling, all sorts of things. So I don't get much opportunity to meet the schedule, but I'm interested always. And if I can, I'll jump on.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm glad you're here. All right.
I actually want to add one thing to the last conversation we were having about webhooks. So I started, put it in chat. I started this project. It's not finished yet. I did it for a client, and now I'm trying to open source it to use AWS queues to receive the webhook. So it's all Amazon infrastructure on the receiving end, and then it sends it into FileMaker, which allows your server to be down for maintenance and still receive webhooks.
Okay.
And you get notified if it can't send it to FileMaker. So for important things like a payment, for example, it's like you can more reliably receive it.
Okay.
If anybody wanted to use that, let me know. I need testers. Someone was going to test it, and I got all excited about it, and then I lost momentum when they didn't test it. So,
Is that a standard mechanism for databases to host that have webhooks to also figure out how to handle when the target is offline, or is that something that they don't consider? Do you
I
know?
don't know. I think with on the sending end, it varies so much. Like I was saying earlier, sometimes they might resend it if they got an error.
Yep.
Others won't. I think it's anything goes.
Okay. We'll have to look it up.
Yep. And
Um,
maybe you have to wrap the webhook uh, function that you are calling in another function and check before you start the webhook call. Check whether the system is running or whether everything is running what you expect to run, and then to send the hook or to initiate the hook, the webhook, yeah, or the WebSocket.
I think that's on the sender side though. So it's not really like if you're talking about receiving a webhook into FileMaker, that's not really under your control.
Yeah, but before you send, you check everything, because one concern was whether FileMaker is running or not. So you can check
Right.
this before.
good point. Yeah.
Right.
I was like in this situation I was dealing with, I think yesterday or the day before, like it's a lab and then we send everything over to them. And then the office sends them the samples and they send back the results, and they kept saying they're missing results. And so we checked with them. They said we sent them, but it didn't go through. I said, well, can you resend them, or is there an API that we can hit to pull them in? And they just said no. They said your server just has to be out. So we just had to go to a more reliable server.
Okay.
And actually, you might want to look into something like that serverless queue that I posted. I don't know if you have a solution yet, but that's
we're using Geist stuff right now, the Auto, and their servers is what we kind of been is what we switched to right away. But AWS obviously is very reliable.
And the difference is that it's like the AWS stuff. It's it's the 9 nines kind of reliability. So it's like always on. Like it's not like even the guy stuff. You still have to restart a server every once in a while. They still have to install updates. There's always like a FileMaker server can never compete with something like AWS API Gateway and serverless queue. That's just it's a different scale altogether. So it kind of depends on how important and how far you want to take it.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
This is all.
And no one mentioned Claris Connect, but I'm just mentioning it.
No one mentioned it. Sorry, Claris Connect. Yeah, you got to put it in there. This is a FileMaker office hours after all, right? So